Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another live stream here on the channel. Live quite a bit early. Didn't really expect to do a live stream today, but typically if we do, it's at 6 o'clock. Currently 3:32 p.m. here on the East Coast. Let's see what we have in today's live stream. We have LWX24, Ben, Brian, let's see, Lily, Indiana, Chris, as well as Cody, Edits, and Random Guy, Pete, and Jessica. Glad to see you guys all in here for another live stream on the channel, as well as everyone else who I may have missed or may not be chatting. Glad to have you in here as well, Liam and Scott. Let's switch right on over to our main scene. And we've got a lot of severe weather to talk about today. So big uptrends. That's the main reason why I've decided to do a live stream today. It's just we've had too many uptrends to not just alert you guys quickly about the threat for severe weather. So I've decided that I want to do a quick live stream really quick here, probably an hour, maybe a little longer. Depends on how long it takes us to get through this very long discussion that we're going to have here. So let's go ahead and start with the very basics here, and that's just by looking at your storm prediction center. So here's the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center. So for today, we actually do have a risk for some isolated damaging winds in Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Shouldn't really do much. No chance for hail. Very small chance for tornadoes, less than 2% in all areas. Don't really see many tornado ingredients in that area, so I doubt we'll actually end up with a tornado threat today. Tomorrow, just a threat for some thunderstorms in Southern California. Day 3, same goes, this time closer to the Four Corners area. Nevada, you got also Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and California all included in that general thunderstorm risk there as well, Utah too. And then finally on our day 4 outlook, that's when our severe weather threat becomes a little bit more elevated. Still not much higher, but we may have the opportunity for a spin-up tornado or two out here in southern Kansas, into western Oklahoma, and northern Texas going into Sunday night. It's not a large chance for severe weather at all. It's actually downtrended slightly than when we last talked, so it doesn't really look to be that big of a severe weather threat. I'm not that worried for Sunday's severe threat. Going into Monday, it should be relatively quiet across most of the continental United States, and then going into Tuesday, boom, that is when we'll have a trough traversing the Four Corners region. This will likely create a outbreak of severe weather across many locations in the central United States into the south central U.S. as well, with the potential for a widespread tornado outbreak, with strong tornadoes being likely in portions of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Really like the outlook they have here. I think this is a really good outlook that they've issued for your day. I believe this is what, day 5, right? Nope, this is day 6. So this is your day 6 enhanced risk for severe weather. I do think by the time the day 1 comes around, we might see an expansion to a slight risk a little bit further north as well. There is going to be an opportunity for a cold core tornado threat out in portions of Kansas and northern Missouri, maybe as far north as southern Iowa, but primarily most of us are going to be focusing on the southern threat for severe weather, as it is a very high in caliber setup for severe weather. There is a very high likelihood that this ends up being a tornado outbreak with the potential of a significant tornado outbreak being possible to kick off your 2025 tornado season. So we're going to be keeping a very, very close eye on this. All we've had is uptrends over the last couple of days. We've not had a single downtrend. There's been some small uncertainties on exactly what in the name of Almighty. Is that an accidental super chat? Wow, thank you for the $50 donation, Jessica. Much appreciated. I was not expecting that. That came out of nowhere. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you for the donation. Gracious day. You sure you didn't put an extra 0 on that one? Gracious. Thank you for the $50 donation. No accident. Well, I'm glad it wasn't an accident because I don't know how to refund on YouTube. I only know how to do that on Twitch, but I appreciate the $50 donation. That is really, really appreciated. Gracious. That's crazy. Thank you, Jessica. That is really appreciated. That's going to pay for my gas money on Wednesday because I am indeed chasing day 7, Wednesday's severe weather threat. So I appreciate that. That's paying for the full trip on Wednesday. I'll be chasing out there with Lucky. I'm going to go to Lucky's house, and I'm probably going to end up doing a little bit of analysis there near his house Wednesday, and then we will decide where to go in North Carolina. So we will most likely be out and about chasing the potential for some tornadoes out there in North Carolina and Virginia on Wednesday. There's a very high likelihood that wants a live stream. So if you are looking forward to a storm chasing live stream, currently that is planned for Wednesday. Going back to day 6 here, though, again, this could be a very, very high caliber risk for severe weather. The ceiling with this is a 5 out of 5. That's the ceiling. The low end ceiling with this, as low as we can get, is an enhanced risk. But I mean, if everything goes horribly wrong, we could actually end up with a high risk for severe weather out of this if we were to see the type of uptrends we're seeing now continue to uptrend. Because, I mean, we've just continuously, for the last couple days, we just keep seeing more and more and more uptrends. Even the newest 12Z GFS has came in a little bit more aggressive with your bowling ball trough, and it is a very interesting trough. We'll go over it in a bit. But again, I do want to make note about me saying a high risk this far out. That is the ceiling. There's a good likelihood that this will stay enhanced risk for severe weather because, I mean, there's not a lot of confidence at the moment in terms of a notable strong tornado threat out in like Mississippi. There is confidence in a widespread area having the risk for strong tornadoes, but a higher end threat, say like moderate or higher, it's too far out to tell at this moment exactly what Bob just said right there. But just to let you know that the ceiling is high with this one. This is a high ceiling caliber setup that we're going to be dealing with going into Tuesday. Let me show you why. So we are getting into March. We are exiting winter, entering meteorological spring. That begins in about 33 hours from now. We begin meteorological spring. And that means that we're going to start dealing with some more potent setups for severe weather. And that's going to start on Tuesday, March 4th. This is not a type of trough ejection that we deal with too often in early March. Now, we do see this. This is common every year. Every year we get a trough ejection like this, but this is pretty dang early. Very early March to see this type of trough ejection is not extremely common. It's actually so uncommon, actually. Let me show you why. Again, that enhanced risk for severe weather, but it's actually so uncommon. This is the first enhanced risk for severe weather on the Day 6 outlook that I believe they've issued in early March for portions of, I think it was like South Central Mississippi. I know it's somebody's first day 6 enhanced risk in early March. We've never seen one in a specific area on day 6 before, so it's very rare, and it's actually extremely rare on the day 6 outlook. This is the eighth. This is the eighth enhanced risk for severe weather on the day 6 outlook we've ever seen, ever recorded, ever since the SPC started, I believe. Don't quote me. 2014 is when they began issuing these outlooks. So that's absolutely ridiculous. This is just the eighth one. Just the eighth one in the last 11 years. This is the eighth one. So that shows you how rare this type of trough and this type of severe weather setup is going to be. It's not a normal trough ejection in a normal type of tornado season trough. Like I said, we see it once a year, but it's still pretty rare. So that's why I'm saying the ceiling with this one is a high risk. It's a very, very serious setup for severe weather. We could end up with multiple discrete supercells in the open warm sector that could produce long track strong tornadoes. And again, I really hope it downtrends, because it's just, I mean, it's not a trough you see that often. You've got a very large area of 60 plus knots lower level jet stream. You've got a very large bowling ball trough ejection centered over Oklahoma, aiming towards the deep south. If we go to your instability, this is underdoing instability. I can 100% guarantee it. Global models do. You're going to have a very large warm sector about the size of this. All the way from eastern Texas up into almost Iowa, into Illinois, maybe as far east as Indiana, Kentucky, central Tennessee as well, by the time you go throughout all day Tuesday into the overnight hours on Wednesday. We also have your supercell composite too. I'm very concerned about this area. This is an area that I'm really, really concerned about. There is some bust factors. There's a few bust factors. It's definitely a red flag and a half in terms for a substantial severe setup that could end up producing one of the more significant outbreaks we end up seeing for quite a while. Let me go ahead and take a sounding. This is just a random sounding. I don't even know where I picked it, but you can already see perfect photograph. You've got a perfect photograph, perfect skew T over here. Thermodynamics are really good, and even though they're really good, they're underdoing it because it's the GFS, so we'll most likely end up with more than that. Really good near perfect wind shear and good lapse rates for Dixie Alley. Overall, this is almost the best sounding you could pull in Dixie Alley. I think I pulled that over Louisiana, so that's not completely, and yeah, that's not in your completely open warm sector. I don't think we can pull one in your open warm sector because the GFS is over-convecting. We can try nitpicking it. So this is kind of where your open warm sector is, where those long track supercells could be, and you see why. So you've got your slight little indent of EML near your 700, 500 millibar. Maybe slight EML and dry air intrusion there. What that's going to do, okay, don't go right ahead and say, okay, it's going to bust because of dry air intrusion in the 300 millibar. This is going to prevent over-convection in the morning hours. And then as you get into the afternoon and evening hours, close to the overnight hours, that cap is going to explode. And once that happens, supercells are going to erupt in the open warm sector. And then you're going to have photographs like this. You're going to have photographs like that, which are going to promote rotating thunderstorms. Now, you have low instability, but again, I want to reiterate that GFS typically underdoes instability. I mean, if we just go ahead and look at consistency here, let's look at, I want to change the product first. Look at consistency with instability. Look how just random it has been. It has not been consistent on exactly where highest instability will be placed. So it's a little confused. It's a global model that happens frequently. So I would not be expecting instability to be this low by the time we come around to the day 1 outlook. Also, another textbook thing. This is the type of textbook trough that we get with bigger, moderate, high-risk days. This diffluence is absurd. This type of defluence is just ridiculous. You've got an area of just a huge area of diffluence across all of eastern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, this whole area. I mean, that is just ridiculously a perfect trough right there. Compared to what this looked like, if you guys were here for our last live stream, this trough looked garbage. It looked absolutely garbage. And let's hope, all right, let's think here. If it looked garbage when we first looked at it, now it's looking crazy. Let's hope it looks garbage by the time we get to the day one outlook. I don't think I thanked you. Jessica Palmer, thank you for the additional $50 donation. I don't believe I thanked you. I apologize. Thank you for the $100 now overall. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the $100. I hope I don't eat $50 worth of snacks. That'd be crazy. But again, thank you for over $100 worth of donations. Really appreciated. So again, just a bunch of diffluence aloft. That's going to allow for the atmosphere to rapidly want to recover and initiate thunderstorms. And again, I hope that I'm dead wrong with all of this. I really hope I am dead wrong, because this setup is definitely one that could be extremely significant. It could be a very high-end day for severe weather if you live in Louisiana, or the whole state of Louisiana, most of Mississippi, most of Arkansas, and extreme eastern Texas. It could be a ridiculously high-end severe weather setup. And again, the only reason why your supercell composite isn't higher is because the GFS is underdoing instability. The GFS has about 1,000 instability. We will probably end up with 2,000 instability. Being realistic, if this setup stays till day one, we will probably end up with 2,000 instability across portions of Louisiana. Looking at the Euro, you can see the Euro is a little bit early on the trough. It's a bit slower for your trough ejection is what I should have said. It's a little slower. You can see your dry line / cold front, more of cold front, is located a little bit more west. What this would promote is a completely nocturnal strong tornado threat. Instead of that cap really busting towards the 5 p.m. or between the 3 to 5 p.m. time frame, allowing for the discrete supercells to form, it would probably break closer to the 7 or 8 p.m. time frame, and it would end up being a completely nocturnal significant tornado outbreak threat. So this would definitely be a more concerning look in terms of the overall significance of your severe weather threat here. And again, these models, they are global models, so they're not going to handle convection that well, but you can generally see it looks very messy on this one, but you can generally tell that open warm sector right in here, right over Mississippi, eastern Louisiana, western Alabama, as you go into your overnight hours, would be where the greatest tornado threat would end up setting up. Maybe a little bit more west than that. Your Euro is definitely a little bit on the slightly less aggressive side in terms of that your prefrontal supercell threat. But you can see you still have a large area. This is even larger for your area of lower level jet there. And then look at the diffluence is just absurd. Look at it all. Absolutely textbook diffluence right there over Dixie Alley. So there's definitely a few bust factors that is going to probably end up keeping this from going to a high risk. I definitely wouldn't say that's likely by any means. If we keep this setup and we continue this uptrend, we will eventually most likely end up with a moderate risk for severe weather. However, no one knows that. You know, we could wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden the whole trough has trended a different way, or instability is completely cut off because the trough's trended too far south, or something else that could completely promote this threat to be downgraded. But just off of these simple model runs, all three of our main deterministics, GFS, Euro, Canadian, GFS ensembles, all of them promote a widespread area of a significant tornado threat with long track strong tornadoes. And then, of course, your damaging wind threat will also be very significant, just like what we had with our previous severe threat, I believe I think it was early this month. If not, it was December 28th, also had that one, just where we had prefrontal storms out in front of the line, and then that line quickly impacted those prefrontal storms, and it turned it into a very large damaging wind threat. That was especially earlier in February. So we're going to have a very large damaging wind threat and a very substantial strong tornado threat for this particular severe weather setup. Just wanted to zoom you guys in a little bit more there. That is the wrong model run. Now, I also want to note, if we go over to your NAM model really quick, if we look here, just briefly going to mention this. I do believe we have the chance for a few tornadoes Sunday night across this area here. Like I mentioned in the very early portion of this stream, south central Kansas, west central Oklahoma, far north central Texas could get in on a tornado threat going into Sunday night. So also monitor that just in case. Another thing, bringing this out further here into Tuesday, we will probably end up with an expansion of that slight risk more to the north into portions of Kansas, Missouri, maybe as far north as southern Iowa, maybe as far east as into central, southwestern Illinois. Looks like we might have the opportunity for a cold core triple point setup up there, or at minimum a cold core, may not be triple point, out in focused around the Kansas City area Tuesday evening and into Tuesday night. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. But by far, the bigger threat is definitely going to end up being further to the south out here in your primary Dixie Alley, Mississippi, Louisiana, most of central southern Arkansas, far eastern Texas. That's going to be your primary area for severe weather. Going into Wednesday, uptrends continue. Currently, the GFS has a very large open warm sector, low pressure here, cold front extending down from southwestern Ontario into far western Florida. Warm front extends over that, going out into portions of Pennsylvania, not as sharply, more like this. There you go. So the primary threat in this day would definitely end up right in this region. That would end up into North Carolina, south central, southeastern Virginia, a good chunk of South Carolina going into Wednesday. We'll have an opportunity for a couple tornadoes. I can't say so much about a strong tornado threat, but do note your lower level jet will be strong enough to promote a strong tornado threat. So if by the time we get to the day one outlook, we're talking about discrete storms in front of the line out here in North Carolina, it may be another possibility for a very a more conditional strong tornado threat. It will not be nearly as widespread as Tuesday, not even close, but we could have a conditional strong tornado threat on this day if we end up with any prefrontal convection, which will really be something the SPC has to determine about 24 hours out from the event. Out here in the Carolinas, it's very difficult to forecast convection beyond 24 hours out, so that's not really going to be something we mention frequently until the day two outlook. They're not really going to be mentioning much of a tornado threat until we figure out what mode of severe weather we're going to get, but probably going to end up with a line on your cold front with the potential for prefrontal cells in front of it, and those prefrontal cells, if given enough time, could produce a conditional strong tornado threat out in North Carolina, Virginia. Don't fully sleep on that threat, even though it's in my neck of the woods, so it's probably going to bust. It might not end up busting, and you can see really good trough here. This is more orientated neutrally. Oh, there you go. There you go. So that is a little bit more of a neutral, maybe negative tilt trough, kind of like this. So still a very large area of flow across your area of diffluence. You can see that's mainly over Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina is your primary area for severe weather. So we'll keep an eye on that. Reed mentioned a super outbreak being possible. This is the type of trough ejection you see produce super outbreaks. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say a super outbreak's possible. A super outbreak, there's no full definition of it, but typically it is well over 100 tornadoes for a super outbreak. And the last one we had was almost 14 years ago at this point. I personally would not be calling this a super outbreak being possible. But the ceiling is a high risk for severe weather. But that's if these uptrends continue. By the time we get to the day one, we'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of flip-flops between the model runs. We're going to have some downtrends. Fingers crossed, hopefully. Let's pray for some downtrends. We're probably going to end up having some uptrends, especially towards the day 2 and day 1 updates. And we'll just see where that goes by the time this threat is happening. But you can clearly tell. I mean, you've got a very textbook low pressure here. It's not a very tight low pressure. Actually, I think this is a little bit weird. Your GFS kind of has a dual low almost, but generally your low is somewhere in here. Your cold front extending a little bit more north than that. Your cold front's like that. I wonder if they have that. Let me go look at the WPC real quick. I want to see exactly what they have for this. Okay. So they have your low pressure being... All right, so right here, they have low pressure here, cold front here, warm front here. That's what they say for early morning Tuesday. By the time you get to Tuesday afternoon, I imagine your warm front and cold front, your cold front's low pressure is probably going to be about here, cold front down here, warm front up to here. I don't know where from there. I'm not sure where that warm front would go. Just a guess. That's a complete guess where that warm front may go. And then they do have a dry line too. A little dry line back here. For some reason. I don't think that dry line is going to play a role in severe weather. The ceiling is a high risk, but the floor is an enhanced risk. I don't think we'll see a downgrade to slight risk, even if everything falls apart with this trough. Reed is a top-tier meteorologist. He's definitely... I've always considered him the best in the field. That I might be a bit biased because I grew up watching him. So I might be a little bit more biased. But he does over-exaggerate a little bit. He over-exaggerates every now and then, but... Let's see here. Yeah, but I do want to reiterate this because I already see it going around on Twitter. This trough that we're going to experience going into Tuesday, it is something we see frequently. We see about, I don't want to say frequently, we see it about once a year in tornado season. Last year, this type of trough, we probably saw it about 3 times or so. I'm thinking the high risk we saw, and then we also had one in... We had one in early May, one in late May, and then the April 26th outbreak. Those are the 3 troughs I can remember that looked this good on model runs. And the only one that underperformed quite a bit was the high risk in May. That was the only one that underperformed a bit. April 26th overperformed, and then the other moderate risk performed as expected, if I remember correctly. But that's almost as good as it gets for a trough. For a bowling ball trough, that is almost as good as it gets right there. That is almost as good as it gets. Now, what happens from now till the day of this event, that's what remains your uncertainty right there. And whatever happens between now and then is going to promote either a enhanced risk or as high as a high risk. Whatever our model runs trend going all the way from now all the way till day of, which is Tuesday, March 4th. I hope it downtrends. Like I said, about 5 days ago, it looked terrible. Now it looks high risk worthy. And then I'm really hoping that we go back to that trash trough ejection by the time we get to the day 1 outlook. The biggest, yeah, you can see the warm sector. There's your main warm sector. There you go. The biggest bust factor, pointing one out right off the bat, is going to be overconvection. That's going to end up being a bust factor. I can predict that right now. However, it's all going to come down to how strong that EML is. That EML looks pretty strong. It looks like we're going to get a pretty decent EML over our primary warm sector. And if that happens, we're going to end up with a very significant day. If you get an EML that prevents overconvection and crapvection in Dixie Alley, that's going to promote most likely a very substantial tornado threat. Depending on what your other ingredients look like, but your EML is that's like the number one thing you look for in Dixie Alley. That is the number one thing you look for in Dixie Alley is that EML, which is your elevated mix layer. In this case, that's going to come from out here in Arizona and New Mexico and traverse into Louisiana and Alabama with dry air aloft. If we try to get a sounding in your open warm sector, we can try to attempt to see where that EML is. And you can see your EML. It's not a very potent and strong one, but you definitely have an EML from about your 850 lower level jet millibar all the way up to your 500 millibar. So definitely an EML there. And again, that's, in my opinion, this is a really good sounding here. There's a few little things that might be issues here and there, but that's generally a good sounding. Yeah, confluence bands is the biggest. That's the biggest concern in Dixie Alley. That's what ends up causing the most tornadoes, in my opinion. That and probably QLCS. But confluence bands are what give you your violent, strong to violent tornadoes in Dixie Alley. So, like I said, there's a few things you can nitpick here. The GFS bias to being too low on instability is one of them. Not perfect lapse rates, but again, we're in Dixie Alley. It's going to be very early tornado season. 6.4 lower level lapse rate should be sufficient. Not the strongest EML, but an EML is present, so no major issues here. I don't see a major issue in this sounding. Like, not something that would be a huge bust factor, but like I said, by the time we get to day one, I already can tell you overconvection is going to be a bust factor. Ethan, did you know Reed called this a potential super outbreak in his live stream, according to somebody in chat, which I believe him because I saw that going around on Twitter this morning. I'm trying to figure out exactly where all this overlap. Yeah, I mean, it's all overlapping right here. I just looked through every product that I normally look at right away. Do you agree? I don't disagree. Let me put it that way. But a super outbreak is not really something that I would personally say is possible. Because saying a super outbreak is possible is implying that you think 100 tornadoes is a possibility. So that's not something that I'm going to go around throwing ever. I don't think I'll ever throw that out. If I do, it's got to be a 45 sig tour, man. Because even with the high risk last year that went 30 sig, I don't think I ever once said super outbreak. A super outbreak really doesn't even cross my mind until I see a 45 sig. But yeah, I mean, this trough is just, it's a perfect trough. It is really a perfect trough on the GFS. Now, some other models may be a little bit less perfect. A little less perfect here. Your Euro and definitely the Canadian could be less perfect, but we're definitely, let me put it this way. The low end event that we are talking about for Tuesday is strong tornadoes and a widespread damaging wind event. That is the low end. That's the minimal. That's the floor for your event. The floor is strong tornadoes and widespread damaging winds. The ceiling is what Reed said. A high risk with the potential of a super outbreak. But there's going to have to be a lot of uptrends I mean, a lot of uptrends for me to be even thinking this is the potential for a super outbreak. Starting with instability, your EML, your lapse rates, potential for overconvection. We're going to have to be closer. There's a lot of things that I would love to wait to see how it works out over model runs. But I mean, then again, I mean, come on. Whenever you get a trough in a warm sector like that, I mean, look at that warm sector. That is a huge warm sector for early March. And then you get a trough like this with, I mean, just the diffluence is wild. It is wild diffluence. Absolutely wild. Over the entire right exit region of the trough. The whole right exit region is all diffluence there. And then you can see that lower level jet really get cranking over Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Western Mississippi in the evening hours. And then by the time you're into your night hours, your late evening hours here, that cranks across most of the remnants of your warm sector. If we go back to your dew points, at this point, your main warm sector will have retreated to generally this area here. I know that's messy, but it's what it gets to when you overlap things. I mean, keep your fingers crossed, man. That's all I gotta say. From a weather enthusiast perspective, this is definitely the type of trough ejection you never want to see entering the U.S. I don't know, Caden. I personally am great, but I'm not liking the look of Tuesday at all. I'm really hoping our EML just doesn't happen. Because if we do get an EML, then this is going to be a very crazy day. If this uptrends a lot, I will go crazy. It's not uptrending a bunch at the moment. I believe it's still uptrending to some extent. You can see the uptrends we've had, y'all. Look at this. Look at the uptrends we've had over the last 48 hours. Look at that. That's over the last 48 hours. We've had that crazy of uptrends. We went from a elongated, positively tilted trough 48 hours ago to a completely classic bowling ball negatively tilted trough ejection. In 48 hours, we went from a minimal severe threat to a very high-end severe threat. So let's hope that we can now trend back to this scenario, to where it ends up being little to nothing. I think that trough geometry is crazy and the open warm sector is awesome, and all you need to solve is some lapse rates and instability as well as good EML, which is probably going to happen. I could also say that's probably going to happen because we do have a bias between global models. Obviously, all global models are lower resolution than CAM models, which results in them underdoing instability, and most of the time lapse rates as well. Yeah, not not gonna say what Ethan's second paragraph is there. Bro's turning into Reed Dimmer. I mean, look at that. Here was the 12Z yesterday. 12Z yesterday. 12Z today. It's like two completely different days. It looks like we're forecasting two different complete days, because on this one, you've got a very large, positively tilted, elongated trough ejection that would promote the threat for some severe weather in this area. And then just the next day, boo. You just got this ridiculous bowling ball trough. I'm shocked by this, honestly. I don't know if I've ever seen such good diffluence like this outside of events that I haven't tracked. I really started tracking severe weather in very late 2020. I really got into it in early 2021, I believe. Maybe it was early 2020. I think early 2020 is when I really got into tracking weather. And then the first big outbreak I tracked that I remember is Mayfield. That was December 10th, 21. And I don't remember any type of troughs like this. I'm trying to think even last year of a trough that was had this much diffluence. And it won't happen. My mind's blanking. Of course, we had better negatively tilted troughs like April 26th last year. That was a very compacted, negatively tilted trough over Nebraska that promoted that outbreak over Iowa, eastern Nebraska. So, let's hope it downtrends, man. That's all I gotta say. Let's really hope it downtrends. Comparing the GFS to the NAM. Dude, March is about to go crazy, dude. Well, that tornado season forecast has to come out tomorrow. Also, I will say, Ethan, I don't know if you looked in Discord DMs, but I nailed the placement of severe weather in March already. I made my tornado outlook. I finished it. I think it was almost a week ago is when I started the graphs. And then I finished it, I think, 5 days ago. I think I texted Ethan 2 weeks ago. I apologize. It was not 2 weeks ago. I should have released my tornado forecast earlier, but I wanted to wait until the nearest Friday, which was tomorrow. It's going to be tomorrow. So tomorrow at 5 p.m. we're still on for our tornado season forecast. I think I can make it. I think I can make it. I'm going to just have to grind out some editing tonight. Is the Southeast going to be the only place that sees severe weather in March? No. No. Will they have the highest chance for severe weather? By a milestone and a half. Will they be the only area that sees severe weather? Definitely not. Because even with this first main trough ejection that we're going to end up, this is our start to tornado season is what I'm going to really call it. You could end up with some severe weather in these areas here, which is that's closer to the Central Plains. I think we see him, I want to say once a year, but I don't know if we see this good of a trough once a year. We get a trough that promotes a large threat and a high-end threat for severe weather at least once a year, but one that is this well-defined of a trough and this well-placed of a trough this time of year, I can't recall anything. I don't think I could ever recall, unless it was before the 2000s, which is definitely possible. The nearest outbreak that comes to mind is what Ethan said, which was April 27th, 2011. That's the closest I can think of for this good of a trough. And outside of that, nothing comes to mind. One day does slightly come to mind, but I don't remember it that well. It was was it a 45 sig in 2021? There's that trough. We had a 45 sig tour in 2021. I believe. March 17th, 2021. Let's go look at that analog. That's pretty dang close. 2021, March 17th. 45 sig. What did this trough look like? There you go. There's your comparison. So there's your lower level jet. I could get this a little bit more high resolution. Give me just a moment to give you some more high resolution imagery out of that day. I gotta find it. It's down here. Any, mini, miny. Mo. Nope. This one. Nope. I gotta find it. Ah! 2021. January, February, March. 17th. 01Z. Future 48 hours. 500 millibar. And retrieve data. Ooh! Well, quite the similarities. Definitely not perfect. Definitely not the best analog. But this is what promoted at 45 sig over Mississippi and Alabama back in 2021. You could see a textbook negatively tilted trough. Low pressure here. Sharply negative here. That diffluence is definitely quite similar. You can see your diffluence aloft is here and into here. That is pretty close. That's a pretty good analog. I'm glad I remembered that day. And this is in mid-March. So still not early March. This was March 17th, 2021. But that's not too far off of what our trough looks like. If we go over to it, this is our trough here, our possible trough for Tuesday, March 4th. Low pressure is a little more north, up into Kansas. And that diffluence goes just like this. A little larger, a bit of a larger area for some diffluence. So this trough has a larger region for diffluence, and it's not as sharply negative. You can still see it is definitely negative, but it's not as sharp as the day of March 17th, 21. You could see that was a much sharper negatively tilted trough. This one has that more bowling ball look to it, which may promote a more messy open warm sector. Let's go to look at some radar archives for that day, because I'm not really too far off of thinking that's a really good analog. I believe that's a really good analog to what we could end up dealing with on a higher end day for this scenario, if this continues the path that it is of uptrending. Alright, let's see. Alright, so here is your March 17th high resolution MRMS. It's amazing going through radar archives and having these sites just on hand like this. So if we go and look, a little bit of morning convection. But there's your warm sector. You can see, there you go. There's your pretty large, but not nearly as large of a warm sector as what we're going to have on Tuesday. So that's a very large, that's a large warm sector, but not nearly as large as what we are going to have for Tuesday. If we go forward, you can see those confluence bands beginning to form and some semi-discrete activity forming over Mississippi, Alabama. That's near your 45 sig, I believe. Definitely more clustered and messy, so probably because you had so much forcing with that negatively tilted trough. Very clustered. Probably substantially more clustered than originally anticipated. And then that cold front begins to swing through. This is definitely a very good analog for what we may see. If our EML is not that strong, we could see a bunch of morning convection, then a little bit of recovery of the atmosphere after that, then a large area of overconvection. This would definitely lead towards a substantially less violent tornado threat. And maybe this would have a bit of a strong tornado threat, but because it's so clustered, it might barely even have classified as a notable strong tornado threat. What was the verification? March 17th. What was the verification here? EF2 was the highest rated tornado. That's what I was thinking. Most of your high risk, with the exception of the southeastern high risk, did not perform. And then you had a complete bust in North Carolina and South Carolina. Had a moderate risk over the coastal areas, and that busted hardcore the next day on the 18th. So this definitely promoted a way messier setup. Matter of fact, I don't even know if you got a lot of... I gotta see the exact placement of that 45 sig. I believe most of your tornado warnings were actually right in that 45 sig area. If not... I think they were all on that 45 sig. I think the SPC nailed the 45 sig. It just wasn't as substantial as what they were probably expecting. Let's go see what the SPC was calling for on this day. Day 1 outlook, March 17th, 2021. 45 sig tour. There's a high risk for severe weather. A significant tornado outbreak is expected with numerous strong and a few long-tracked, potentially violent tornadoes. An initial round will continue across Alabama this afternoon, and a separate swath should emerge over portions of northeastern Louisiana this afternoon and spread eastward across Mississippi and Alabama this evening and tonight. Few changes to the high risk, extended to slight risk, blah, blah, blah. So they were talking about the potential for long-tracked violent tornadoes. So this risk did underperform quite substantially. It definitely underperformed quite substantially. And they did not introduce an enhanced risk until day 4. They didn't even have a day 6 risk. They had a day 5 slight, day 4 enhanced, day 3 enhanced, day 2 moderate, day 2 large moderate, day 1 high, 30 sig. Day 1 afternoon update, high 45 sig. Interesting analog right there. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see a scenario quite like this unfold on Tuesday, where we end up with a bit of a stronger QLCS back here, with a large area of overconvected supercells. That's a very reasonable expectation at this point. We'll see which way it trends at this moment. Right now, I would almost go as far to say as this looks better than what we saw on March 17th. Not in terms of we're going to see a 60 sig tour, okay? But I mean the overall setup. I would like to see a sounding here for an EML. Ooh, man. That is why things overconvected quite a lot. That EML was not strong. I don't even know if you had much of an EML out there. So there's your reason for overconvection. Now, further to the west, closer to the squall, you did have an EML way more present. And then this was where the cold front was, which was fully... I mean, you had a full EML there. That's why you didn't see a lot of convection in Louisiana. Do I still have that loop up? Did I seriously close the loop? How dumb am I? I didn't, did I? Oh my word, I actually did. Nope, there it is. If we go back, see here, right here. That's why you didn't see a lot of convection fire over Louisiana. There's not a lot of convection over Louisiana because you had that much stronger EML in place right there. And if you go into central Mississippi, you still had an EML, which if you look, there wasn't a bunch of convection. There wasn't a bunch of convection in central Mississippi until the evening hours, right here. Into the evening hours, closer to like 6 p.m. That's when your convection really erupted there, but it was a little bit too late because their cold front was already there. And then if we go into Alabama, you did not have an EML, so you just saw right here. If we go back, watch as all this stuff enters towards central Alabama, southwest Alabama, where the EML is not present, and it just all erupts. Everything erupts, and that was the issue with this day. Everything erupted, which resulted in a messy and crapvection day. So that's how important your EML is. And then you could see it congealed into a small QLCS there into the overnight hours. Actually, this was just 9 p.m. This isn't really even overnight yet. So that's why an EML is so important, because it prevents things like this. I would like to see what the model runs look like on this day to see if how they handled this crap vection. But all right, there you go. That's your analysis for probably your best analog. I think that was a really good analog. You guys think that was a pretty good analog? That was the only one that I could think of that could match the magnitude of this if we kept seeing a, if we continue to see an uptrend here. What? Huh? Oh. I got very confused there. I would love to, Ethan. I would love to. I've got time for it. I'm not going to start making my video till probably 7. I don't know. I mean, well, we'll see what this trends towards, y'all. Let me see here. I don't see a 45. I don't see a moderate, Bob. Are you looking at the 12Z one or 0Z? Well, right now it is an enhanced risk. Just they're going to monitor the trends very, 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 very closely, and we'll see which way it trends. We don't have enough data at the moment to figure out exactly where this is trending. At the moment, it is still on an uptrend until we see a downtrend. We have not seen a downtrend yet. So until we see a downtrend, we ain't downtrended. We're still on an uptrend. We're on an active uptrend with this threat. Yep. Trey's tornado forecast will be out at 6 o'clock. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that. No, not so I could copy it. I've already finished all my forecasts. I've got mine done. I just want to make sure that I'm not going to be disagreeing with the man himself that much. I really don't want to disagree with Trey, because then I'll end up being wrong. So, I'm gonna try my best not to change a thing. I've locked in everything. For the Photoshop that I use to make my graphics and thumbnails, there's a lock button so that way it doesn't move and you can't edit it, and that's what I've done. I've locked all of my tornado forecast things so I can't change them without individually going to every single overlay and unlocking all of them. So I'm going to try my hardest to not change my tornado forecast, my tornado season forecast. Let's see here. Yeah. Trey is definitely, if you want straight facts and just overall analysis on the threat, that's who you go to right away. I haven't seen him pull a bias towards anything. Like, he just lays it down flat out right in front of you, very clearly, very easily. Boom. Now you know what's going to happen. Which I don't do that. I give you the high end, the low end scenario, the median, and then go through everything. He just gives the most likely case scenario right out, which is why he's the best, because he's the only one who does that, from what I know. Reed is the one you go to if you want to see how high the setup's going to get. You go to him. If there's a tiny tornado on the ground, you go to his live stream and hear him yell wedge for the next 30 minutes. If there's a day 2 slight risk, you go to his live stream to see if how high end it's going to get. Just like this, we got a day 6 enhanced risk, and he's saying a possible super outbreak, which I'm not going to hate on him. It's just, it's a little aggressive, don't you think? For a threat 5 days out. The most pencil-looking tornado. Major 2-mile wide wedge. Oh, man. I will forever follow him. He'll forever be #1 to me. Just because of how much passion he has behind his career. Oh, he better, Ben. Trey better analyze this. I want to see him analyze it now, but obviously he's got his tornado season forecast that he's worked all day on, so. But I would love to see him make a video now to see what he says. But he's going to do it eventually. He always does. Trey will always make an analysis for a enhanced risk or higher. Even I've seen him do it for slight risks. I will be extremely disappointed if we don't get an analysis of this threat by Trey. I would be extremely disappointed. I'm having a bad day, but then I hear everybody Trey here. Yep. Or you know things are about to go down once you hear that too. If you're looking at a severe threat and then you go to his channel and he's uploaded and you hear those words of an intro, you're like, yep, this is the real deal. No channel names, Connor. Yeah, his case studies are awesome. Alright, let's see if I got anything else over here. I think we've gone through most of this. But yeah, if you guys are enjoying the live stream, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all. There's a very high likelihood we will be live through much of the afternoon, and especially into the evening hours on Tuesday. I can guarantee we'll be live in the evening hours of Tuesday. And like I mentioned before, there's a very high likelihood that I will end up chasing Wednesday's threat. Unless we see major downtrends for Wednesday's severe threat. But you can see, you got a low pressure here, negatively tilted trough. and already went through and drew the dryline cold front and warm front earlier. But it's not a terrible setup. Out here in the Carolinas. At the moment, it's near a perfect setup for the Deep South on Tuesday. Yeah, moderate can only be issued on a day 3 outlook, day 2, and day 1. That only starts when they begin doing the actual categorical risks, which is day 3, day 2, and day 1. The only time they can do high risks is day 2 and day 1. Again, I also want to reiterate that we are probably going to end up with a bit of a cold core setup on the northern side of this, generally somewhere in here. So we'll most likely end up also keeping an eye on that for a few tornadoes that could be possible in that area. A day 3 moderate, we gotta wait for the trends, y'all. At the moment, this looks like one of the biggest threats that we've seen in years. It honestly does. But we have to wait for the trends. If this is what it looked like, you know, a day before the event or a day of the event, then it would be a very significant outbreak, one that we haven't seen in a long time. However, it's not. It's going to trend different ways, and we're going to have to wait and see which way it trends. There's no shot this is even close to the trough of March 31st. I doubt this is even remotely close to that trough. Let's see, go to March 31st. Trough, not even close. Not even remotely close. You have a huge trough over the Central Plains. And difficult to see exactly where the placement of that negative tilt is. There you go. And you can see you had a negative tilt like that. Not even remotely close to the setup we're looking at. And then you can see that was your double barrel high risk. Look at the verification of it. And little surprised that we even had a high risk down here. I remember tracking it, and I did not expect to see a high risk on the southern side of that, the threat. The main area for severe weather was always north. That's where your main forcing mechanism was on this day. Which, again, we can clearly tell. If we go here, you can clearly tell low pressure, negative tilt. I don't know where the cold front is. Somewhere in here. Warm front somewhere in here. Not sure exactly where. I'm not looking at the ingredients. You were the opposite? I always knew north was the way to go. I don't have any stream archives for that because I got rid of them. They were crowding up YouTube because I did so many back in the day. But I was very confident on the northern high risk verifying. The southern high risk, I was questioning a lot. You could see the CPC. They also had a 45 sig win there, so they were definitely more confident in the northern setup being more significant. But this is not, in my opinion, this is not a good analog here. Just, I mean, the trough's completely different. Its magnitude, its complete orientation, amplitude, orientation, as well as just the size of your trough. The amplification's a little similar because it's going to generally be negative, so similar. Yeah. I think the reason why they didn't call this a super outbreak was because of the... I'm not for sure, but I think it was the limited violent tornadoes. I can't remember exactly how many violent tornadoes we had on this day. Okay. I'm smelling some food. I'm gonna have to go, man. I'm sorry. I gotta go get me some food. So we did get an EF4 tornado. But how many? 1 EF4, 11 EF3s, 32 EF2s. That's pretty significant. That is definitely a high-end significant major tornado outbreak. Borderline super outbreak. About 150 tornadoes, 44 EF0s, 9 EFUs, 49 EF1s, 32 EF2s, 11 EF3s, 1 EF4. I mean, that's borderline. Oh, man. Borderline super outbreak. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull this back over here. All right, if you guys have any more questions or anything you want to ask me before we head off here shortly, go right ahead and comment it as long as it's weather related. Like I said, we will have our tornado season forecast out tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. I will be scheduling it a little bit later. I probably will schedule it very late tonight or early tomorrow morning, depending on exactly when I finish making the video. But I'm going to try my absolute best to get it out at 5 p.m. Tomorrow morning Eastern time. Is that the rolling fork one? If so, definitely not. Uh, I'm not sure if anyone talked about issuing a high risk on that day or talking about the SPC issuing the high risk, but I remember personally that I didn't think a high risk was needed due to the threat of overconvection. And then, I mean, the moderate barely verified until the rolling fork supercell fired. I'm pretty sure that one supercell alone verified the whole threat. Now you got me wanting to go look at it. I got to go look at it. March 24th. Dang. Yeah, so the moderate underperformed substantially until that supercell fired. It was a big bust until that supercell fired. Wow. I mean, you had like before that supercell, maybe we had at most a tornado or two before that cell fired. You had a couple wind reports, one hail report throughout the entire moderate risk area and enhanced risk area until that supercell fired and then pushed northeastward and caused the rest of your tornadoes and damaging wind reports. Wow. But that does show you that it only takes one cell. I remember that environment was very high end, so all it took was one supercell that was discrete in that high end environment, and it exploded and produced a very violent tornado. Oop. Almost played their briefing for that day. Yeah, I tracked the whole thing. We were live for the entire event. We were live for like 13 hours here. Let's see. Wow. Okay. Ohio's not going to see much out of this. Not going to see much at all. No channel name, severe weather alert. No, I'm not staying for the new GFS run. I got to go eat. I'm going to talk to Ethan for a bit, and then I'm going to watch Trey's tornado season forecast, and then I'm going to work for about 5 hours on making sure that video is done and edited. And then I'll set the premiere up either tonight or tomorrow morning. Then we can really start focusing on live streams and maybe videos for this threat. Uh, 6 p.m. Eastern, so a little over an hour. So we'll go ahead and end here in about 10 more minutes. We're going to go ahead and conclude. I think we've gone over this event. If you're just tuning in, long story short, extremely high-end ceiling, low-end floor is going to be multiple strong tornadoes and a damaging wind squall line. That is your low-end scenario. And then, like I said, higher-end scenario is an extremely high-end severe weather threat. And worst comes to worst, we could look at a high risk for severe weather if these trends continue by the time we get to the day one outlook. Most likely scenario, in my opinion, most likely case scenario is we continue to see slight uptrends and downtrends all the way till the day one outlook. We end up with a moderate risk for severe weather. We have the threat for some discrete supercells in front of the main line, and we could end up with a couple strong tornadoes, maybe a long track strong tornado. But the primary threat overall is definitely going to end up being with any discrete cells that manage to fire. So I do believe this is eventually going to lead to a moderate risk for severe weather. Moderate is in the middle. Like I said, enhanced risk is the floor, high risk is the ceiling, so a moderate risk is the level. That's right in the middle. It's the second story. It's right in the middle. So that's your... And if I'm not mistaken, only like one... No, maybe two. I think 2 out of the 8 day 6 enhanced risks we've seen over the last 11 years, ever since they made the extra categorical risks, I believe only 2 out of those 8 stayed enhanced. The other 6 went moderate. And I don't think any went high. If I'm not mistaken, none of our day 6 enhanced risks have gone high before. So, we'll see if that trend continues with this day 6 enhanced risk. Pretty sure 2 have stayed enhanced throughout all risks until day 1, and then, like I said, 6 has gone moderate. I mean, that's just a trough and a half. Even if this was a month ago in February, this trough would still promote the threat for strong tornadoes, but the biggest issue is we're going into tornado season now. So we're not looking at, we're not looking at lower end severe threats for a second season anymore. We're going right on into now our tornado season. And we're going to start with a big threat. And it's not going to end anytime soon. Let me pull it up for you. My favorite thing to look at in terms of long-range severe weather forecasting is the GFS ensembles on this graph. Here we are now, April 27th, or April 27th. Can you tell I got that outbreak on my mind? March 27th, right here. Nothing. We get a little uptick Sunday. We might have the risk for severe weather Sunday, maybe a little bit on Monday. Tuesday goes absolutely high up there. And then also Wednesday, then it goes back down. Little break, maybe a small severe threat or two. And then we go right back up to a much bigger threat for severe weather going into March 11th and 12th. This could be another very high-end severe weather day. However, it is significantly further out than our event on Tuesday. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen with this threat here going into the middle portion of March. But models are very consistent that the threat for severe weather is going to continue. We are entering a very active pattern for March. A very, very active pattern for March. Which is not unusual. We see tornadoes, a lot of tornadoes in March. Matter of fact, I actually have some data I could show you. Okay, I can take this one away. I'll close that one. Shoot, where are you? You. Okay. We typically see just under 100 tornadoes in March. Just under 100 tornadoes in the month of March. Then April, typically we see just under 200 tornadoes in April. And then May, typically we see just under, just over 250 tornadoes. Then June, we see just under 200. July, we see around 100. August, we see closer to 80, and then it keeps going down from there. All the way down till your least active month of December, which has an average of about 43 tornadoes. I did see someone say if I'm going to pursue meteorology as a degree. No, I do not plan for that. A meteorology degree is, at the moment, I don't see much of a point in it. Legacy media as a whole is dying off, so it's not something that I am considering to pursue. Unless something changes substantially, I'm not going to be pursuing that as a degree. But alright. Welcome to the stream, Catman. We're getting close to wrapping it up here. We've gone through everything that I wanted to. What in the world is Ohio doing? Got a lot of storms going off in Ohio now. Bunch of special weather statements there. I didn't even plan a live stream today, Caleb, so... I mean, this was not really a last minute thing, because I told you guys towards lunch, near noon. So there's your risk. There is your risk for Tuesday. We do have a level 3 out of 5 already issued from the Storm Prediction Center for Tuesday, March 4th. This is a very high chance that we will end up with a moderate risk level 4 out of 4 somewhere in this region by the time we get to the day 1 outlook. And then it's definitely not out of the question that we end up with a high risk by the time we get to day 1, depending on which way trends go. Also, note that this slight risk for severe weather will probably be expanded more to the north by the time we get to the day 1 outlook. We are going to have a chance for some severe storms and even a couple tornadoes, especially with the cold core setup up towards far northeastern Kansas, good chunk of Missouri, southern Iowa, into west central Illinois as well. So, yeah, and then as we go into Wednesday, that's going to move into my neck of the woods. Me and Lucky have already initiated full chase mode, so we're going to be out there. I'll probably leave here, depending on when storms fire, but I'll probably end up leaving around 10 a.m., get towards Lucky's house around noon or so, and then we'll do an analysis there around noon, and then start up stream probably somewhere in the afternoon hours of Wednesday for a live stream there. We'll be chasing. Me and Lucky will meet and chase Wednesday, and it will be live streamed here on this channel. Yeah, we could have a spin-up tornado today. You see a little area of rotation here north of Columbus, but if we do manage to see anything, it will be a very brief and a very weak and a really quick spin-up tornado. It will not be anything notable, nor will it be anything that I would be able to track. I mean, it would probably be so brief that it wouldn't even show up on radar. Very low end tornado threat today. All right. Well, that's going to be about it. Again, if you have any last second questions, put them in the chat. We're going to start ending here in less than a minute. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out. Share the stream with your family, friends, social media. And consider hitting that subscribe button with a notification bell set to all if you want to know when I go live or upload a video. Also, you could always rewatch this live stream if you want to watch the first 30 minutes or so. We were consistently talking about the threat for severe weather. So definitely, if you're looking for the most update information, just go to the first 30 minutes of this live stream and you will be able to get the latest information that we went over. No, I don't think it will affect Central Texas much at all. I think you'll be good. You might end up with a marginal risk for severe weather on some day. Maybe it would be Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, but most likely you could just end up with some rain, and that's about it. Once again, like Pete just reminded there, I will be releasing my tornado season forecast as a premiere at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the night is I'm going to go and I'm going to research everything, make sure I'm happy with my tornado season forecast. And then I'm going to get trying to upload it and film it. We'll see how that goes. And, like I said, I'll set up that premiere either very late tonight or early tomorrow morning. So that way you guys will be able to chat in the chat, either again, late tonight or tomorrow morning, whenever I set up that premiere. And I will see you guys in the next live stream that I do. Next live stream will probably end up being either Saturday or Sunday, or who knows, maybe both. Tomorrow, I'm just going to be doing that tornado season forecast at 5 p.m. Eastern. So I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday night, Thursday day, actually, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe and watch the severe weather and the snowfall. Goodbye. Thank you, mods, for mod chat. Stay safe, watch severe weather and the snowfall, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's premiere. Have a great rest of your night. Goodbye.